The stars went dark when the Voidborn ships appeared. This had been happening for 30 years now. Worlds across the Galactic Alliance lived in fear of the day their skies would fill with the strange, living vessels that seemed to swallow light itself. No one knew where the Voidborn came from. Some believed they emerged from the space between galaxies. Others thought they were from another dimension entirely. What everyone did know was that no defense had ever stopped them. On the Alliance capital world of Elysium, emergency alarms blared through the grand halls of the council chamber. Council members from 100 different species rushed to their seats as holographic displays showed the latest attack. This time, the Voidborn had struck the Zolani colony of New Haven. 3 million lives lost, said Ambassador Lura, her translucent blue skin pulsing with distress lights. As the representative of the aquatic Melosian species, she had always been one of the more emotional voices on the council. New Haven's defenses lasted just 6 hours. High General Xath of the insectoid HFY clicked his mandibles in frustration. The defense grid on New Haven was one of our most advanced. We had 60 warships in orbit. And now we have 0, said Ulder Voss, the ancient representative of the crystalline ethery. His voice resonated through the chamber like the ringing of a bell. This cannot continue. Our most advanced civilizations fall one by one. The council room fell silent. For 3 decades, they had tried everything. The technological brilliance of the Aetheri, the hive mind tactics of the Anaxthar, the ancient wisdom of the Zolani. None of it had worked against the Voidborn. Ambassador Lura moved to the center of the chamber. Her voice was quiet but carried to every corner of the room. There is one option we have not tried. Whatever it is, it cannot be worse than extinction, said High General Xath. Lura activated the central display. An image of a blue-green planet appeared, orbiting an average yellow star at the edge of the Orion Arm. Earth, she said. The council erupted in protests. The humans. Elder Voss's crystalline form flashed with alarm. They are barely space-capable. They are primitive, agreed Xath, still fighting among themselves for resources and ideology. Lura waited for the noise to die down. Yes, they are young as a species. Yes, their technology is far behind ours. But they have something we lack. She changed the display to show human history. Images of battles, wars, and conflicts flickered by. In their short history, humans have developed more ways to fight and destroy than any species we have encountered. Where we see warfare as a last resort, they have made it an art form. You suggest we arm primitives? Asked Voss. Give advanced technology to a species that might one day turn it against us. I suggest we will have no future to protect if the Voidborn are not stopped, Lura replied. Our observers on Earth report that humans possess remarkable adaptability and an unusual talent for combat. They think in ways we do not. High General Xath studied the images of human warfare. They accept casualties at rates that would be unthinkable to our species. Precisely, said Lura. The Voidborn have always exploited our unwillingness to sacrifice lives. Humans understand sacrifice in war. Elder Voss's crystalline form dimmed slightly, a sign of deep thought among the Aetheri. If we do this, there is no turning back. Once humans know of the wider galaxy, once they have our technology, they will either save us or join the list of the Voidborn's victims, said Lura. But at least we will have tried something new. The council voted. It was not unanimous, but desperation won over caution. Within a day, a diplomatic vessel was prepared. Its destination, Earth. As the ship entered faster than light travel, Ambassador Lura gazed at the final image on the display, a human military ceremony. She wondered if the council had just saved the galaxy or introduced it to a new kind of terror. Only time would tell. Captain Lisa Brennan was enjoying her morning coffee when the world changed forever. She sat in the control room of Luna Base, Earth's main defense station, when every alarm began to sound at once. What's happening? She asked, putting down her cup. Officer Pete Yang's face went pale as he stared at his screen. Captain, there's There's a ship in lunar orbit. It appeared out of nowhere. Lisa moved to the main display. Sure enough, a vessel unlike anything humans had ever built was holding position near the moon. It sparkled like a jewel, with smooth curves and materials that seemed to glow from within. "Are they broadcasting?" she asked. Yang nodded. "Yes, but not in any language we know." "Wait, it's changing." "There, adapting to our communications." Within minutes, the strange message became clear. The visitors came in peace. They wanted to talk. They needed help. President San Harris called an emergency meeting. Representatives from all major nations gathered in the United Nations building in New York. Captain Brennan was there too, along with Admiral Joe Mackenzie, the highest-ranking officer in Earth's small space fleet. "We need to be careful," said the Russian representative. "This could be a trick. Or the greatest moment in human history," countered another. Admiral Mackenzie, a man with gray hair and steady hands, stood up. "I volunteer to lead the first contact team. Captain Brennan has the most experience with space operations. She should come too." And so, 3 days later, Lisa found herself on a shuttle approaching the alien vessel. With her were Admiral Mackenzie, Lieutenant Frank Daniels, their best tactical officer, and a small team of scientists and diplomats. The inside of the alien ship was even more beautiful than the outside. Lights moved through the walls like fish swimming in water. The air smelled like a forest after rain. Their hosts called themselves the Melosians. Ambassador Lura, with her blue transparent skin and gentle voice, welcomed them aboard. "We represent the Galactic Alliance," she explained. 117 species working together to explore and protect our shared galaxy. Admiral Mackenzie's face stayed calm, but Lisa could see the wonder in his eyes. "And why have you come to Earth now, after watching us for so long?" Lura's skin darkened slightly. "Because we face extinction." The humans were led to a large room where other alien representatives waited. The crystalline Etheri, whose bodies looked like moving diamonds. The insect-like Anexthar, with their complex exoskeletons and clicking mandibles. And others, too strange to easily describe. Together, they showed the humans recordings of the Voidborn attacks. Planets burning. Defense fleets scattered like leaves. Strange living ships that seemed to bend reality around them. "For 30 years, they have hunted us," said a tall, ancient-looking alien made of what looked like bark and leaves. "Our technology is far beyond yours, yet we cannot stop them." Lisa watched Lieutenant Daniels studying the battle footage with narrowed eyes. He was already taking notes, seeing patterns that the aliens had missed. "They always retreat when losses reach 30%, he muttered. "They're preserving their forces. And look here, they avoid direct confrontation with smaller ships." Ambassador Lurat exchanged glances with her fellow representatives. "This is why we've come to you. Your species sees war differently than ours." Admiral Mackenzie leaned forward. "What exactly are you asking of us?" "Join us," said Lura. "Bring your unique human perspective to this fight. We can provide the technology, the ships, the resources. You provide the strategy and the will to use it." Lisa looked at the faces around her, human and alien alike. This was humanity's first step into a much bigger universe, and it was beginning with a request to do what humans had always done best: fight. "We'll need to see everything you have on these Voidborn," Mackenzie said finally. "And then we'll need ships." 6 months passed quickly. Earth changed in ways no one could have imagined. Alliance technology poured in. Humans learned about faster-than-light travel, energy shields, and weapons that could destroy mountains. In return, humans shared their unique understanding of warfare. Commander Heather Boyd stood in the massive shipyard orbiting Mars. Next to her, an Aetheri engineer named Trill made unhappy noises. "These designs are inefficient," Trill said. His crystal body flashed with colors that showed his frustration. "Too much armor, too many weapons, not enough living space." Heather looked up at the ship taking shape before them. It was ugly compared to the sleek Alliance vessels. Blocky and dark, with gun ports covering its surface. "Pretty doesn't win wars," she said. "These ships need to take hits and keep fighting." Trill's colors shifted to something like doubt. No Alliance captain would accept such risk to their crew. "That's why humans will be captaining these ships," Heather replied. The first fleet of human-designed ships was ready just in time. The Voidborn had appeared near Proxima Centauri, the star system closest to Earth. They were attacking an Alliance science outpost there. Admiral Mackenzie commanded from the flagship, the UES Defender. Captain Lisa Brennan led the Valiant. 5 other ships, all captained by humans, but with mixed human-alien crews, formed the rest of the fleet. "Remember your training," Mackenzie told them over the comm. "These aren't Earth tactics anymore. We've adapted them for space, for these ships, and for these enemies." The Voidborn ships looked like giant sea creatures made of darkness. They moved in ways that made no sense, sometimes seeming to disappear and reappear elsewhere. "Hold formation," ordered Mackenzie as they approached. The Alliance admirals watching from their own ships looked nervous. They had never seen anyone willingly approach the Voidborn. The first attacks came fast. Strange energy beams cut through space toward the human ships. On any Alliance vessel, such hits would aim for engines or weapons. But the Voidborn had never fought humans before. They didn't know where to hit the unfamiliar ships. "Shields holding at 80%, reported Lieutenant Daniels from his station on the Defender. "They're testing us." "Let them," said Mackenzie. "Boyd, are your fighters ready?" Commander Boyd's voice came through the comm. "Wing 1, prepare to launch." "Execute Maneuver Delta," ordered Mackenzie. What happened next shocked the Alliance observers. The human ships deliberately placed themselves in the path of Voidborn attacks. They took damage that would have made Alliance captains retreat. The humans called it tanking, drawing enemy fire while other forces moved into position. From the belly of the Valiant, small fighter craft launched. They were barely larger than shuttles, each with just 1 or 2 pilots. No alien would send such tiny ships against the Voidborn. It seemed like suicide. Wing Commander Alan Pierce led 12 fighters in a tight formation. "Wing 1, break and attack." Remember, they've never seen fighters like ours before. The small human craft darted between the massive Voidborn ships. They moved in ways the Alliance had thought impossible for ships with living pilots. The G-forces would kill most alien species. Humans, however, had trained for this. "Target the nodes on their left flanks," called Pierce, just like in the simulations. The fighters fired precise shots at what human analysts had identified as weak points. The Voidborn ships twisted, trying to catch the small craft. But the fighters were too quick, too unpredictable. On the Defender, Mackenzie watched as the Voidborn formation began to break apart. "They're pulling back," he said, surprise in his voice. "They're actually retreating." Across the Alliance communication channels, there was stunned silence. Then a Nexthar voice spoke. "They always advance. Always. We have never seen them retreat." Mackenzie allowed himself a small smile. They've never fought humans before. For the first time in 30 years, the Voidborn retreated without claiming a victory. Dr. Olivia Martinez never expected to find herself in space. 6 months ago, she had been studying parasites at a university in California. Now she stood on an Alliance science vessel, surrounded by the most advanced laboratory equipment in the galaxy. "Your background is unusual," said Ziv, a Zolani scientist whose skin looked like tree bark. "Most Alliance xenobiologists study for 200 years before reaching this level." Olivia smiled. "Humans don't have that kind of time. We have to learn quickly." She turned back to her microscope. The sample she studied came from a damaged Voidborn ship. It was unlike any life form she had ever seen. Captain Ben Howard entered the lab. He had been assigned to protect the science vessel and work with Alliance military forces. His uniform was crisp, his expression serious. "Any progress, Doctor?" he asked. Olivia pointed to the screen displaying her findings. "The Voidborn aren't what we thought. Look at this tissue sample. It's not a single organism. It's multiple species living together. Ben leaned closer, like a coral reef. More like a walking ecosystem, she said. I think the ships are the same way. Not built, but grown. Different species working together as one unit. And every ecosystem has vulnerabilities, Ben said, understanding immediately. Olivia nodded. Exactly. If we can identify the key species that holds their system together, we might find a way to disrupt it. While Olivia worked in the lab, Ben spent his days training with Alliance forces. The aliens struggled with human combat tactics. The idea of acceptable losses confused them. The concept of sacrificing some to save many went against their nature. During one training exercise, Ben ordered a simulated ship to cover the retreat of civilian vessels, knowing it would likely be destroyed. You would sacrifice your crew? Asked Kurthal, an Aetheri commander whose crystal body flashed with concern. To save 10 times as many lives? Yes, Ben replied, and any human crew would volunteer for that mission. Kurthal's body dimmed slightly. Your species frightens us sometimes. Ben's face remained serious. Good, because we need to frighten them more. Later that evening, Ben and Olivia met in the ship's dining area. They had become friends over the past few months, united by their mission despite their different fields. How's the training going? She asked. Ben sighed. Slowly. They're brilliant tacticians, but they think too carefully. In battle, sometimes you need to act on instinct. Like my grandmother used to say, too many cooks spoil the soup, Olivia said. Exactly. How about your research? Olivia's eyes lit up. I've been comparing notes with researchers studying other voidborn samples. We've identified 17 distinct species that make up their biological system. She pulled up a diagram on her tablet. This one here seems to be the control system. It connects to all the others, like a central nervous system. So if we could target that one, Ben started. We might disrupt the entire collective, Olivia finished. The problem is getting close enough to deploy any kind of countermeasure. Ben was quiet for a moment. What if we let them capture one of our ships? Olivia looked shocked. That would be suicide. Not necessarily, Ben said, his mind working through the problem. A small crew, hiding in maintenance shafts and sealed compartments. The Voidborn wouldn't detect them if the ship appeared abandoned. A Trojan horse, Olivia whispered. Ben nodded. Exactly. Get a team inside their ships. Deploy your countermeasure and disrupt their control system. It's incredibly dangerous, Olivia said. The Alliance would never approve such a risky plan. That's why humans are here, Ben replied. Because we understand that sometimes, to win the war, you have to risk everything. They looked at each other, the seed of a plan forming between them. It was dangerous, perhaps impossible. But for the first time, there was a glimmer of hope against the Voidborn threat. 3 weeks later, Admiral Mackenzie stood before the Alliance Council. The room was filled with representatives from dozens of alien species. Captain Howard and Dr. Martinez stood beside him, ready to present their plan. This is too risky, said Elder Voss of the Aetheri. His crystal body flashed with doubt. No Alliance species would consider such a mission. That's why humans will do it, said Mackenzie. We've already found volunteers. The council chamber erupted in voices. Some supported the plan. Others thought it was madness. High General Xath raised a clawed hand for silence. Let us hear the full plan before we decide. Captain Howard stepped forward. We call it Operation Trojan Horse, after an ancient Earth story. We will allow a damaged human vessel to be captured by the Voidborn. But the ship won't be empty. He showed them a diagram of a human warship. Our engineers have created hidden compartments throughout the vessel. 30 human soldiers will hide inside, along with Dr. Martinez's biological countermeasure. Dr. Martinez took over. The countermeasure attacks the control species within the Voidborn collective. It won't kill them, but it will disrupt their ability to communicate with each other. And while that happens, continued Howard, Our team will locate and disable their quantum communication system. This had been the breakthrough. A communications specialist named Ryan Collins had discovered that the Voidborn used quantum-entangled particles to communicate instantly across vast distances. This was how they coordinated their attacks so effectively. If we can disrupt both their internal and external communications, Howard explained, the entire Voidborn fleet will be thrown into chaos. And the survival chances for this team? Asked Ambassador Lura, her blue skin darkening with concern. Howard hesitated. We estimate 20 to 30%. The council chamber went silent. Unacceptable, said Elder Voss. We cannot ask any species to accept such risk. You're not asking, said a new voice. A human woman in a captain's uniform stepped forward. We're volunteering. This was Captain Nicole Garcia of the UES Defiant. She was young for her rank, just 34, but had distinguished herself in the recent battles against the Voidborn. My crew and I understand the risks, she said. We also understand what happens if we do nothing. The Voidborn will continue to destroy worlds. Eventually, they'll reach Earth. The Council debated for hours. In the end, they couldn't stop the humans. Operation Trojan Horse was approved. 2 days later, the Defiant positioned itself near a known Voidborn patrol route. The crew of 30 hid themselves in the specially designed compartments. Captain Garcia remained on the bridge, along with her first officer, Commander Greg Sanders. Last chance to back out. Mackenzie told them over the secure comm line. No one would blame you. Garcia smiled. We're staying, Admiral. Just make sure you're ready when we light up their command ship. The Defiant sent out a fake distress call. Its engines were offline. Its weapons systems appeared damaged. It drifted in space, a perfect target. They didn't have to wait long. 3 Voidborn ships appeared, materializing from what looked like tears in space itself. They circled the human vessel cautiously. In the Defiant's engine room, Lieutenant Scott Miller watched the sensor readings. They're scanning us, he whispered to the other engineers hiding with him. Everyone stay still. On the bridge, Captain Garcia took a deep breath as a tractor beam blocked onto the Defiant. The ship shuddered as it was pulled toward the largest Voidborn vessel. Shut down all systems, she ordered Sanders. Make it look like we've lost power completely. As the lights dimmed on the bridge, Garcia sent one final message to the Alliance fleet. Trojan Horse is in motion. See you on the other side. Then the Defiant was swallowed by the massive Voidborn ship, and all communication ceased. For 3 weeks, the Alliance heard nothing from the Defiant. Hope began to fade. Some council members already spoke of the mission as a failure. Admiral Mackenzie refused to give up. They're still out there, he told his officers. I know it. Inside the massive Voidborn mothership, Sergeant Maria Valdez led her small team through pulsing organic corridors. Of the original 30 crew members, only 17 remained. The others had been lost during their mission to deploy Dr. Martinez's countermeasure throughout the ship. How much farther? Whispered Private Jack Harris. The young soldier's face was dirty and tired. They had been moving non-stop for days, hiding from Voidborn patrols. Maria checked the crude map they had made. The central chamber should be 2 levels down. That's where we'll find their quantum communication hub. The inside of the Voidborn ship was like nothing they had imagined. It wasn't metal and machinery, but flesh and bone. The walls seemed alive, pulsing with strange fluids. Lights moved through transparent tubes like blood in veins. Remember your training, Maria told her team. We stick to the plan. The plan had changed many times since they boarded. Captain Garcia had been lost on the 5th day. They had been discovered while planting the first batch of countermeasure devices. The captain had led the Voidborn away, allowing the rest to escape. Commander Sanders had taken over, but he too was gone now. A Voidborn patrol had cornered them 3 days ago. Sanders and 4 others had created a diversion, buying time for Maria's team to reach the lower levels where the communication systems were located. I still don't understand why they haven't sent more forces after us, said Lieutenant Ellen Rivera. They're communications expert. The countermeasure is working, replied Dr. Paul Wilson, the only scientist left in their group. It's affecting their ability to coordinate. They know something's wrong, but they can't organize a proper search. Maria led them to a maintenance shaft. It was tight and hot, but it would take them down to the next level undetected. One by one, they squeezed into the narrow passage. I joined the Navy to see the stars, joked Private Harris as he crawled through the tight space. No one mentioned crawling through alien intestines. Despite everything, Maria smiled. Humans could find humor even in the worst situations. It was one of their strengths. When they emerged from the shaft, they found themselves in a large chamber. The ceiling arched high above them, covered with pulsing lights. In the center stood a strange structure that looked like a tree made of crystal and flesh. "That's it," whispered Rivera in awe. "The quantum communication hub." Dr. Wilson scanned it with his device. "It's even more advanced than we thought. Those crystal formations are quantum entanglement nodes. They allow instant communication across the galaxy." Maria reached into her pack and pulled out a small metal box. Inside was the quantum bomb, their last resort. It wasn't an explosive device in the traditional sense. It was designed to create a quantum disruption that would break the entanglement links. "Everyone remember the plan," she said. "We plant the device, set the timer, and head for the escape pods." Harris nodded toward the hub. "And how do we get past them?" For the first time, Maria noticed the Voidborn guards. 6 of them stood around the hub. They looked almost human in shape, but their skin was dark and shifting, like oil on water. Their eyes glowed with an inner light. "We fight," Maria said simply. "Rivera, Wilson, circle left. Harris, with me on the right." Standard flanking maneuver. They checked their weapons. They had started with advanced Alliance energy weapons, but most had run out of power days ago. Now they carried a mix of human projectile guns and makeshift weapons created from parts of the ship. Maria took Captain Garcia's dog tags from her pocket and kissed them. It had become a ritual before each fight. "For the captain," she whispered. "For the captain," her team echoed. Then they moved forward, toward what might be their final battle in this living nightmare of a ship. On the Alliance command ship, Admiral Mackenzie was about to order a retreat when the sensors officer called out. "Sir, the Voidborn ships are acting strangely." Mackenzie moved to the main display. What he saw made him hold his breath. Across the sector, Voidborn vessels were breaking formation. Some drifted aimlessly. Others fired on each other. "They did it," he whispered. "They actually did it." Inside the Voidborn mothership, Maria's team had fought their way to the quantum communication hub. They had lost Rivera and 2 others in the battle, but the remaining soldiers had overwhelmed the guards through sheer determination and tactical skill. Dr. Wilson worked quickly to attach the quantum bomb to the central node. His hands shook from exhaustion and fear, but his mind remained clear. "How long do we have?" asked Maria, keeping watch with Harris and the others. 10 minutes once I activate it," replied Wilson. "Plenty of time to reach the escape pods, if the path is clear." Maria nodded. They all knew the chances of escape were slim. The Voidborn might be confused by the countermeasure, but they were still dangerous. "Ready?" asked Wilson, his finger over the activation button. "Do it," said Maria. Wilson pressed the button. The device hummed to life, its lights blinking in complex patterns. "Time to go," said Maria. They moved quickly through the corridors, following the route they had mapped to the escape pod section. Twice they encountered Voidborn patrols, but the creatures moved erratically, confused by the loss of their internal communication. When they reached the escape pod bay, Maria's heart sank. Most of the pods were damaged or missing. Only 2 remained intact. "They won't all fit in 2 pods," said Harris quietly. Maria made a quick calculation. "Each pod can hold 7 people. We have 12. A moment of silence fell over the group. Then Private Lee stepped forward. "I'll stay," he said. "I'm wounded anyway." He showed the deep gash in his side that he had been hiding. 4 others volunteered to stay behind. Maria wanted to argue, but there was no time. The quantum bomb would detonate in less than 3 minutes. Quick goodbyes were said. Dog tags were exchanged. Promises were made to tell the families. "We'll make sure everyone knows what you did," Maria told them as she entered the last pod with Wilson, Harris, and 4 others. The pods launched just as alarms began to sound throughout the mothership. Through the small viewport, Maria watched as the massive vessel began to shudder. The quantum bomb didn't create a conventional explosion. Instead, it released a wave of energy that disrupted all quantum entanglement within its range. For the Voidborn, who relied on quantum communication to function as a collective, it was devastating. The mothership began to break apart from within, not from physical damage, but from the sudden inability of its components to work together. Maria's pod was halfway to the Alliance fleet when the mothership finally collapsed in on itself. She thought of the 5 who had stayed behind, and of Garcia, Sanders, and all the others who had given their lives to make this mission successful. 1 year later, on the newly established human embassy on the Alliance capital world, Ambassador John Walsh raised a glass in memory of those lost. Beside him stood the survivors of Operation Trojan Horse, now celebrated as heroes throughout the galaxy. Major Maria Valdez, she had been promoted upon her return, stood next to Dr. Olivia Martinez, who had created the countermeasure that made their mission possible. "They called us primitive," Valdez remarked as they watched alien dignitaries mingle with human officers. "But sometimes it takes a primitive solution to solve an advanced problem." In the years that followed, humanity's place in the galaxy changed forever. Human ingenuity, adaptability, and their unique approach to warfare transformed the Galactic Alliance. Access to advanced alien technologies accelerated human development beyond imagination. And throughout the galaxy, one saying became common among all species: when faced with an unstoppable enemy, call the humans.